Carrying on with the sense of anticipation for Easter, we leave John's Gospel and we're going to Matthew 21 for Palm Sunday. Matthew 21:1. And when they had approached Jerusalem and had come to Bethphage, to the Mount of Olives, then Jesus sent 2 disciples, saying to them, "Go into the village opposite you, and immediately you will find a donkey tied there, and a colt with her. Untie them and bring them to me. And if anyone says something to you, you shall say, 'The Lord has need of them,' and immediately he will send them." Now this took place that what was spoken through the prophet might be fulfilled, saying, "Say to the daughter of Zion, Behold, your king is coming to you, gentle and mounted on a donkey, even on a colt, the foal of a beast of burden." And the disciples went and did just as Jesus had directed them, and brought the donkey and the colt, and laid on them their garments, on which he sat. And most of the multitude spread their garments in the road, and others was cutting branches from the trees and spreading them on the road. And the multitudes going before him, and those who followed after, were crying out, saying, "Hosanna to the Son of David! Blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord! Hosanna in the highest!" And when he had entered Jerusalem, all the city was stirred, saying, "Who is this?" And the multitudes were saying, "This is the prophet Jesus from Nazareth in Galilee." And Jesus entered the temple and cast out all those who were buying and selling in the temple, and overturned the tables of the money changers and the seats of those who were selling doves. And he said to them, "It is written, 'My house shall be called a house of prayer,' but you are making it a robber's den." And the blind and the lame came to him in the temple, and he healed them. But when the chief priests and the scribes saw the wonderful things he had done, and the children who were crying out in the temple and saying, "Hosanna to the Son of David," they became indignant and said to him, "Do you hear what these are saying?" And Jesus said to them, "Yes. Have you never read, out of the mouth of infants and nursing babes thou hast prepared praise for thyself?" And he left them and went out of the city to Bethany and lodged there. I think that's a great last line for any of you who are feeling that Easter is going to be a really busy time and that church is going to make it only worse. We are not called to be frenetic, however important Easter is. It's a wonderful little bit, that, isn't it? Everything is in motion. Easter is kicking in. Jesus is arriving. The whole city is in uproar. It is time for a major speech. And he leaves them and goes to Bethany and has the evening off. Next time you are over busy, it's worth bearing that in mind. But that's not the main point. The main point is that we've got this tremendous picture of Jesus with which you are familiar, but it's good just to air blow it again so that we can just feel it again and feel the pressure of it and the temperature of it and the action that's going on in it, really. I said at the beginning, I think it's good to just see if you can get yourself in this, get back into the sandals and the dust and the dirt and the donkey and all the sweat and the whole thing. And the big picture here, the meta-narrative, the story is that this is the Lord who comes. This is where Easter kicks in. This is where the trek to Jerusalem ends. This is really where the whole divine project, planned from the beginning of the world, actioned at Christmas, this is where it really begins to come public. This is John 3:16 writ large. The purpose of God. God sends his Son to save the world, and now it is seen to be doing so. Before this, we've had the messianic secret. Before this, Jesus has been in Galilee, sometimes keeping out the way. Before this, Jesus said, "I don't want to go on about, don't go on, don't tell anybody at the moment." We're away from that now. We're away from just this miracle and that teaching and this, and that's interesting and that's interesting. We have real direction now. Jesus comes, and he is seen to come. And he comes to the heart of the problem. Not that everybody in Jerusalem was horrible, but that it typifies the heart of the problem. As Graham Greene would have said, or as Conrad would have said, the heart of darkness. It typifies all the problems of the political, the religious, the moral, everything, because it typifies Israel. And so he comes to it, and as he enters it, there is the definite sense of God coming, and whether they like it or not, with authority and power, to sort it, and thus to the cross, and thus to the resurrection. And there is controversy, and there is immediate sort of angst about this. The city is thrown into uproar, it says. You can imagine all that. And then there's all the controversy and the business of the temple, and all the noise and the coins and the doves flying away, and the children chanting, and the Jewish authorities being grumpy, and it's all up there. Everything is there. It's not an easy day. It might be a noisy, colourful day, but it's quite a controversial day. Battle is joined in a way between good and evil, between life and death. A battle which will be won in a few days' time at a great cost. If we look at this, just to reflect on this, you've got a real sense here of Jesus going public. As I say, up until then it had been somewhat hidden, individual, profound, but now it is very public. Jesus gets on the donkey. They don't put him on the donkey. It's quite intentional. He's not carried away by the crowd. He gets up on the donkey. And it's pretty visual being on a donkey amongst lots of pilgrims who would have all been walking. Nobody else went on donkeys on a pilgrimage like they do today. People walk, don't they? No, he's up there. Everybody can see him. There's nothing much more public than going into the temple and turning over everything, isn't it? It's not exactly a low-profile occasion. This is important. Now is the time of revelation. Now is the time to see. Now is the time to know unambiguously what is going on. There is thus a proclamation. It's not just something going on underground. This is not just sort of a subversive organisation. Jesus comes and everybody knows. He reveals this. He comes with authority and power. We often say this. He is a king who comes. They would have seen that easier than us, really, with all the prophecy of the Messiah and all this business about being on a donkey. There's a lot of history in the Old Testament and outside of the Old Testament of great emperors turning up on mules and asses and donkeys to show that they have a real sense of power. It's a bit like the Queen turning up for the trooping of the colour, and is surrounded by all these impressive household troops with all their plumes and guns and lances and horses and all. She turns up as the commander-in-chief in a little sort of carriage wearing a two-piece and a nice hat, because she doesn't have to sort of say, I'm the Queen. It's a bit like, it just turns up. There's a lot of history of that. It's great power and authority there. And he in no way says, oh, we're not doing this. He's not thrust up on the donkey. It's not some crowd getting a hold of him and being carried. He got onto the donkey and he rode in there. I gather, I wouldn't have known this, that there was a tradition in ancient times when a king arrived at either one of his cities or a city of a neighbouring king. He arrived with a great procession, made everybody sure that he was coming and everybody knew he was great. But then he would go into the temple of the god of that city and worship the god and offer a sacrifice. It's a bit like a sort of a civic service, have a mass said for him sort of thing, to say that he would come in peace and he was one of them. Jesus doesn't do that at all. Jesus says, this is my Father's house and you are messing it up for lots of good reasons, and lays about him as his Father. He doesn't say, I just worship your God. I am the Son of God. He comes with enormous authority and power. We know that. But also with humility. And so in peace, he comes in peace. There is no sense in which he forces anybody to do anything. In fact, the other way of looking at him on this donkey is an incredibly vulnerable position. There is no security here about not being arrested. And when he comes into the temple, he doesn't say, get all this out because I want to make a big speech. He says, I get all this out because this should be a house of prayer and space to be with God. And these two things come together in the Messiah, that we have this, that Jesus comes with power, but also comes with humility. And doesn't force anything. But he does force a decision. He doesn't come in like some dictators come in now, and before they come in, the secret police are handing out the flags. Wave them or we take you away, sort of thing. People have to decide. But because he goes public, because it's so unambiguous, Jerusalem is forced to make a decision. Jesus does not come to destroy Jerusalem. He doesn't come to destroy all those people. He comes to destroy the power of evil and to save those people. And thus he gives them a decision which they cannot avoid. Who is this man? Who do you say that I am? Is this the Saviour of the world, or is this something really awful? The challenge is there that day. Will you be saved by the cross or judged by the cross? But this whole demo results in forcing them to decide. They have to decide. And this morning, you and I, in some ways, are in their position. We're no better and no worse. Jesus comes to us. There's no way that Easter is the time it happens, all right? It's a good time to think about it. I remember being in an Alpha course years ago, and it was an Alpha course in the days before Easter, and somebody said to me, I really want to make a commitment and become a Christian, but it's only, I don't know, it was Tuesday or Wednesday. Perhaps I should leave it till Easter Day. That would be a good day to do it. I said, no, actually, Jesus is risen from the dead. Today will do. This is not a time-sensitive thing particularly, but my goodness, isn't it a good time to do it? There's a nowness about Easter, an immediacy about Easter. That Jesus comes, we know he comes, but it's a good time to think about it. It's a good time to reflect from that story that Jesus comes with authority and power and decision, and he comes whether we like it or not. This is not a volunteering exercise. They didn't say, oh, come. He came. And so to you this morning, in relation to your heart, Jesus comes, whether you like it or not, whether I like it or not, and I'm not sure I always do like it because it sounds like a quite uncomfortable experience. I say that he came to the heart of the matter when it came to Jerusalem. Well, he comes to deal with the matter of your heart this morning. That is quite a challenge. You almost feel like putting down your palm leaf and stop shouting Hosanna, because it's quite challenging, really. And he comes quite publicly. What does that mean for us today? It means that although you all know about this, going through the Easter story brings it into the foreground of our lives. This couple of weeks, we are not just doing a bit more of St. John's Gospel and learning about another miracle or another sign or another teaching, vastly important as that is. We do, at this time, the death and resurrection of Jesus. Next Sunday, we will do resurrection. It is all writ large, what we believe the rest of the time. And that means it's a tremendous time to examine our response to it and not get lost in the bushes of the details of Christianity and the Christian life and what we should be doing and this and that and something else. They all saw it, and this is a good time to see it and say, this is about resurrection. This is about Jesus coming into my heart, like it is every day, but this is a good time to re-examine that and to be challenged. It is very much up front here. Do the story, hear the stuff and say, am I up with this or am I not up with it? Have I gone off the boil? Am I prepared for this? Or have I got things in my heart I do not want rearranged and mucked up? I was thinking about the cleansing of the temple. Immediately I'm thinking, do I like people turning up who I haven't invited? We like people coming to our house, into our lives, that we have invited for some reason. We do not like cold callers. I remember as a boy, extraordinary business, the one person who ever came into our house that we didn't invite and we didn't want and we couldn't stop was the man who read the meter. You remember that? They were under the stairs and he brought a torch. Extraordinary business. But there's not many people like that. Well, Jesus will arrive, all right, with a torch. And to change the analogy slightly, how many of you like somebody arriving in your house and start rearranging all the furniture? Oh, I don't think you should have the sofa there, love. And that can go. Who is this person? Oh, I've got to skip outside. Can you imagine this? And already I'm thinking, a week before Easter Day, there's stuff I should put in the loft so he doesn't see it. So he comes with authority. But he also comes with that gentleness and humility that doesn't say you will be saved whether you like it or not. He doesn't say, I'm going to change you whether you like it or not. I'm going to rattle the bars, but you will need to decide what you do about me. Will you have me or will you not? I'm thinking of that rather bittersweet experience, that bittersweet sort of story about people standing on the beach looking people out to sea, waving their arms and asking, are they waving or are they drowning? A bit like that at Palm Sunday. Are you waving or are you drowning? We are drowning, not just waving. Come, Lord Jesus. Just want to say one last thing, though. That is that Jesus comes to you this morning, and I would challenge you with that, because I'm challenged with it, because it's uncomfortable. He comes to the matter of your heart, just as he came to Jerusalem. But if you are somebody like me who's trying to follow Jesus, you could just do a second take on this. How does it feel to be following Jesus on Palm Sunday? How does it feel to be tight in there with the donkey? I've always thought that was a most uncongenial place to be. The donkey is big and smelly and sweaty and ticky, and it's kind of swaying from side to side, and the crowds are all gathering in, and it's either being crushed by the crowd or crushed by the donkey. And you're moving along in the middle of this, and I'm thinking, this is not a hugely good place to be. But following Jesus has got to do with that. It's got to do with standing there with him in the temple when he's doing all this stuff and thinking, you know. It means that I'm going public. We are called to go public at Easter. There's no way those disciples could have not gone public. It's a bit like I sometimes sympathise with those security men that you see around presidents, you know, with the glasses and the suits and the bulge under the arm. Doesn't somebody once say, oh, I saw you on the telly. You were with him, weren't you? Oh, no, I'm just a civil servant. No, we saw you with him. And so we are called to be people like those disciples. We saw you with them. We saw you were with Jesus. We are called to be visible. We are called to let people know that we follow Jesus this Easter. That's a bit what the chickens are about, actually. But actually, there's plenty of spare chickens that even if you're not giving a chicken out, take it home and stick it in your front window and see if somebody throws a brick through it, which they might have in those days. I'm going public. I'm with the donkey. I'm there. And perhaps I'm called to do what Jesus did. I mean, he turned over all that stuff that was unfair and unkind. He turned over all that stuff that was unjust. You know, perhaps I'm called to do the sort of things that Jesus does, which is very public. Perhaps it's to do with social justice. Perhaps it's to do with forgiveness in our judicial system. Perhaps it's to do with gender and the Christian view of it that is being completely lost. Perhaps it's to do with how we deal with other faiths at Easter. That's a good time to talk about it, isn't it? And it's controversial, and it moves the furniture, and people don't like it, and the city is thrown into uproar. I tell you, next week, Penzance will not be thrown into uproar by a few dozen elderly people wandering up the main street with a cross. It will not be. But it should be. And above all, I should be visible as a person of Jesus. I mean, the temple could have been cleaned out by a lot of rather radical Jews who didn't like them doing that to the temple. It didn't need to be Jesus. It's not just doing Christian things like having hunger lunches in Lent. It's about Jesus himself. I am here. I stand with him. I put myself on the donkey. You know, they put their clothes on the donkey and he sat on it. The donkey walked on everybody else's clothes to show that they welcomed him, but he's sitting on my cloak, on the donkey, all the way through. It's that intimate that I am a person for Jesus. And you know, if I follow him this week, I'm not sure where it's leading, because I reckon all those disciples are there thinking, I'm following Jesus, it's not looking good, but how's it going to turn out this? How is it going to turn out? With following Jesus, you stick with him, but you're never sure quite how it's going to turn out. We're going to go to Jerusalem, and it's going to be difficult. How difficult? They arrived there, all those disciples. Some of them have got, what have they got in them? They've got denial in them, they've got betrayal in them, they've got anger and fear and running away in them, but they still stick with it. You're quite sure with Jesus where you're going, do you? Follow me, he says. And there is no sat-nav. Just follow me. I think it's a good place for today. If I let Jesus in and I follow him, where does that take me this Easter? The usual place? Bank holiday, Monday week? Or I'm not sure. Am I challenged by something new? As we come to communion this morning, it's about following Jesus. About letting him in and then going with him. Where that might lead, with the hosannas, with the furniture moving, with the going on.